So on today's video, we're going to be looking at the Osbot Tiny 2 4K PTZ camera. Now, I did purchase this myself in the Prime sale recently. I've been looking for a new camera, and after watching a couple of reviews myself, I decided to go with the Osbot. Let's do an unboxing and let you know my thoughts. So we've now done the unboxing, and what you saw was we have this very nice little travel case which it comes in, which is really useful, with a pouch at the top here, which I did find a USB-C to A converter. More on that a bit later. The camera itself, which as you can see is a PTZ. So what it does do also is desk mode, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and privacy mode. What it does is basically points deliberately down at itself. So when this goes off, what it will do is just point down in that direction, so you certainly won't have any challenges there. But you can kind of see there just how small this device is. It's not a particularly large device. It sits nicely, it's got a nice rotate on that axis, it's really smooth, there's no real resistance, so that will move and shift about pretty nicely. From a mounting perspective, you get this mounting bracket inside. Now this is designed for use with monitors or screens. So the idea is it can sit and clamp on. It does have nice little rubber protect on the back there, so you're not going to do any damage to your screen there. And the idea of it is that this metal plate here can move up and down. So the camera will sit on top with the magnets, and you can basically change your orientation around a little bit. So you want it to point a little bit more vertically down, you can. If you wanted it to sit more on the level, you can. So there's a whole plethora of options that you can do with this. Now, the other good thing is with the bottom of this device is you do have the standard threaded screw. So if you've got a tripod, you can absolutely mount it on there. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about this device. So what do we actually get in the box? Well, this is a 1 to a 1.5 inch CMOS sensor. It does do 4K at 60 frames per second. It does also support HDR. If you do turn on HDR, you will be limited to 4K at 30. As I mentioned earlier, there is a USB-C cable that comes in the package and a USB-A converter. Now, I would imagine if you put on the USB-A converter, you are most likely, like you do with the Logitech Brio, limit yourself from a bandwidth perspective, and we will only achieve 4K at 30, which is usually plenty and fine for kind of capturing with a webcam. Feature AI tracking. It has gesture control, voice control, and a load of other software-based controls that are really useful to use. And again, we'll kind of delve into that in a little bit It does support autofocus, so a bit like my camera here does, it should autofocus on. We'll talk a little bit about that later on when we kind of go through the actual features of this camera. And one mode in particular, which my colleague at work said I definitely needed, which was the beauty mode. I don't think necessarily I'm the target audience for that, but we'll happily go over that as we step through the software. So let's step in and have a look at the software that you get with this Osbot Tiny 2 4K and I'll let you know my thoughts. So this is recording with the Osbot and actually using the onboard mic. Now at the moment I've kind of used natural daylight, so there's nothing extra in my room. I've got a bit of sun. It's around nearly 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK. I do have a north facing window, so you kind of get the amount of natural light I'm getting in here, and it's doing a wonderful job. Now what I've done is deliberately dropped in this bit here. What I'm going to now do is just swap over to my wave so you can kind of tell the difference in the audio. So as you can tell, I'm now using the Wave 3 mic, so you can probably now hopefully judge the difference between the audio and those two clips. Anyway, let's have a look at the application. Now, when we present it at the top, you do have these 4 profile settings. Now, this is the Osbot Center. When I downloaded it, I did get the option to do a firmware upgrade. I would massively recommend you do that, but it gives you a bit of an idea of how it works. You do have console, image, and more. There is an option to turn on the likes of HDR, etc. But let's just actually look at some of the tracking. Now, I will note that the tracking seems to work well if you're passing it through or using it within the system. When using it in stuff like Teams, it definitely works, but it's can be a little bit buggy or a bit laggy. So that might just improve as time goes on, or you need to actually look at using the virtual camera, which you'll probably see will pop up for me as we go. But let's turn on tracking. So I've got a couple of options. I've got standard tracking. I've got normal tracking, which should now track me. So if I move, you can see the camera is checking and moving around with me, which is pretty good. I can certainly do close-ups. So there's a difference between that's a kind of close-up thing, and that moves in a little bit and it will kind of pull in and various other bits, which is quite cool. You can do a headless view. Yeah, so imagine, could be a good view, right? We can do a lower body view, so yeah, you can have a look at me junk. But either way, that kind of works. You've got the have a look at my messy desk mode. So as you can see here, certainly looking at my junk now. You've got that one, and this would be really good for kind of product reviews, that kind of thing, if I had this set up in a better position. We've got the whiteboard mode, which if I had a whiteboard would work, but because I don't, it can't actually use. Now we'll go to hand. So it now flips up, and that was very quick, right? It's now tracking my hand, and I can make it track either hand, right? So I'm going to get it to check my right and my left. And as you can see, it did get a little bit carried away there. So yeah, it can be a bit, it's quick, right? So just something to bear in mind. Let's just go back to normal tracking, so that should follow me in. And then you can kind of set those presets. The great thing is you can set those presets and build them out. I've set a few already on one of my devices, so they're just there and you can use them. It's really simple, nice and helpful. You've got this option again, wide, medium, narrow. So I can bring it really in close. So this is really good. So this gives you some nice shots, right? So I'm going to look to see if this can be key bound. I imagine it can, but this will be really nice to be able to give your content a little bit of a pop and various other bits, so you can basically bring it into you as things go on. Now the view and control, you do have this gimbal bit here, so I can move the camera around, and yeah, it's quite sensitive, so just something to bear in mind. You can then you also use this to zoom in and out as well, so you can go right into my hairline. Look at that, which is great. Image wise, HDR, I can turn that on. Let's see what happens. So you can kind of see what's happened with the color now. I've certainly got a bit more. Obviously the lighting in here at the moment isn't great. we'll have a look at this a bit later when I turn on some of my key lights and kind of see what difference that makes. Also, I will do a video in a moment. Basically, we'll just cover off it in almost pitch black and see what happens there. So let's just swap off HDR. And you can see I've got a little bit more, sort of brightness to me now. Different palettes. So you've got an option between streaming mode and non-streaming mode. I imagine this just gives it a different look and feel. I'm not really got into too much about what it does. What it actually says here in the kind of tooltips, which you won't be able to see, is that the standard mode is suitable for most scenes, most focus on scenes and characters, whereas the streaming mode is for live streaming of goods, more realistic and restored. Whatever that means, right? So yeah, differences between those. It's not particularly clear. Auto exposure, so you can kind of mess around with this if you want to play around with the exposure and hide myself. I can also move the ISO as well to really bleed myself out, so we can go ultra white mode. Look at that. So yeah, some nice bits here. You'll notice anti-flicker. So what this is really good is if I had lights behind me, I could turn on the different ones. So if I had a TV or some other light that was emitting behind me, whether it was LEDs or something that behind me, I could basically set different bits there that would be really useful. I'm going to turn that off for now. White balance, we can just adjust that. So again, the temperature, so nice and warm to a more cooler look, right? So yeah. Again, you can mess around with contrast, saturation, sharpness, hue, all those kind of things there. Under more, you've got a couple of extra settings in here, which gives you like the sleep time, where you've got auto sleep. As you can see, it's now gone to sleep, which I don't want it to do. But what it does when it goes to sleep is it flips down and it kind of prompts from there. You've got different sleep backgrounds you can set. You've also got a sleep background flip. You've also got these hand gestures. So we'll try and do some of these, right? So zoom basically is, yeah, see how that works? It actually worked okay that time. You can do a one with two fingers. Sometimes. I'm probably not in the right area for this, but either way. But that does, I kind of find it, yeah, it's a little bit, you can lock the target as well, like that. And then that would lock the target apparently. Either way, there's different ways and means you can deal with that. So I'm just going to zoom back out. Direction flip. So that doesn't seem to do much at all, but I imagine that will probably control the zoom, different areas. Voice control. So I can actually go hi tiny. Track me. And the lights are flashing on the device. Hi tiny, zoom in closer. Hi, or maybe I don't need to say hi tiny, maybe just zoom in closer. Hi tiny, zoom in closer. There we go. So it might just be a language barrier. Maybe I need to be more American.
Hello, America.
Who knows? Hi tiny, zoom out further. Hi tiny, whatever. Yeah, so you can kind of see it's a little bit hit and miss. To be honest, you can get a remote control with this that would help. I think maybe the more I play with it, the better it will get. Other options you've got, you can just record directly in here, so it does have some record functionality as well, which is quite useful. We do have, so here's beauty mode. I'm just going to share that screen with you as well, so you can see that. So hopefully I'll be able to show you now with the beauty mode. It's obviously still tracking me about, right? So either way, what we can do is adjust my tone, so you can see live on the recording. That's making a difference now. When it comes to slimness, I can slim myself down like that. Definitely got slimmer there, right? So nice for weight loss. Can narrow my jawline. Again, nice little simple thing to do. Face, I can make my eyes bigger, smaller. Cheekbones, again, adjust the cheekbones. You can kind of see my ears move up and down. Nose, you can definitely thin that down a little bit. Mouth, you can see the difference it's making there. Whiten those teeth, actually be better for me. And then, yeah, do some bits with when I sable as well. So it's a couple of nice little things there, right? Body wise. So body slim, let's see what happens. Let me just try and slim down. Yeah, look at that. Takes me a bit more. I can make myself leggy, and I can make my legs longer as well, which would certainly have a difference if I was standing up. Make my waist thinner, shoulders thinner. Let's come back here, please. Let's just drag me down because it's lost me now. Well, I can see what I've done to the wall. Yeah. You can see how oversensitive this is now. So, yeah, there we go. Okay, make my heads smaller. Shoulders. Yes. And various other bits you can kind of do there. Now, if I really wanted to as well, I can give myself a nice set of makeup as well. So, all good, right? I can put a bit of blush on and give a tipsy one in case you've had a few the night before. Bit of vitality, wake me up a bit. So there's some really clever stuff that you can do with this beauty mode. Again, it's not necessarily for me, but yeah, it's again something you can play with, right? So have a play, heart's content, etc. You've also got filters which kind of just cover off fresh, clear, film, sheer, pure, black and white, which isn't quite black and white, but if we go like that, it is. So that gives me a nice thing. And again, you can kind of just adjust the level. So there's a lot of functionality you can mess around with. Now, to get it to work in the likes of OBS, what you have to do is force the virtual camera on, and then the filters that happen within the app can happen that way. So quite seamless, really. So this is it under slightly lower light conditions. As you can see, I'm still fairly good, but what I would suggest is that you do use something like a Elgato key light or something that will just bring that back up, which I'll show you now. Therefore, with a bit more lighting, as you can see, I probably do need to adjust it a little bit more. You can certainly make this a little bit more punchier, but that's all I'm saying is that it works well in low light, but probably if you're going to use this professionally, you're going to want to bring in your lights. Excuse all the mess on this side as well, to be honest. So there we are. That is my review of the Osbot Tiny 2. And it is tiny, right? So it's quite remarkable. So a couple of things that were quite nice and that I didn't necessarily get to test out was the likes of the whiteboard mode. I don't actually have a whiteboard in my office at the moment because it's within a little bit of a construction state, as you probably saw when I looked at this camera. And it has some other features as well, like the beauty mode, which I kind of dabbled with, but yeah, not necessarily would utilize. One thing I did notice that it wouldn't easily carry through to Teams. It doesn't necessarily mention to use a virtual camera. I couldn't get that to work as standard when I've done it in my practice. It might just be me, it might be something new that's coming. There was a firmware update available for this the day I plugged it in, so they obviously are continuously developing it. The other thing I did notice with this is the gesture controls were a little bit hit and miss. I'm one of these people that sometimes speaks with my hands and like to throw my hands around a bit and stuff, and I feel that would probably pick up too much, so you can turn that on and off. Now the actual manual controls of the, I would say the gimbal features are a little bit too sensitive, so it does take a little bit of getting used to. But that aside, I would say this is probably the best webcam I've ever owned. I mean, the fact it's this big is quite scary, to be honest. I do like the desk mode. I'm going to have to try that out once I've got my office set up correctly. But stuff like the zoom and the actual AI tracking is really, really useful. I've had it bug out a couple of times, but not massively. So, you know, your mileage may vary. I've used this in stuff like Microsoft Teams. I've used it on a Zoom call and some other calls as well, just to kind of test out that functionality. You can take it through. It does lack the background mode, so you can't put replacement background on, but obviously if you're using certain apps, you can. You could absolutely link this with NVIDIA Broadcast, for example, and let that take on the heavy lifting for you. Now, the one feature that is missing from this that will probably either appease or not appease Windows users is Windows Hello, which is a little bit of a shame because it would be really useful if you could just log in by looking at this device. But then the fact it sits in the rested position in privacy mode while it goes to sleep probably means that that's not a viable option. Anyway, yeah, would I buy this again? To be honest, I will. I'm going to look, once my studio is all fully set up, I will probably look at maybe just the light version of this, just to check that out. Or even look at the Insta360, which I haven't played with, but I know that does different modes as well. It can actually swivel on its axis and give you portrait mode for those people that like to do YouTube shorts. So yeah, it's certainly going to be worth a try. But anyway, I do stick by, this is definitely worth a purchase. I did pay $270 for this on Amazon. I will stick an affiliate link in the description. Have a look around though, because I definitely noticed it was slightly cheaper on the Osbot website. That being said, I'm not sure how the shipping would work on that, so it's just something to bear in mind. Anyway, hopefully you've liked this review. Yeah, but go pick it up. Well worth it, to be honest. Like I said, absolutely. I mean, I'm coming from the Logitech Brio, which is another 4K camera, and this just blows it away. If you have liked it, hit the like and subscribe, and as always, I'll see you next time.